Look, I'm not going to defend it. I think they've been ignorant of a lot of unintended consequences that come along with a lot of policies in play right now.
Right.
For decades, Mike Rowe has been the voice of hard work, humility, and blue-collar pride. But while millions watched him crawl through sewers and climb skyscrapers on dirty jobs, one mystery remained unsolved: his love life. Fans have speculated for years about the woman behind the man who built an empire on grit and honesty. Now, at 59, Mike Rowe's girlfriend has finally spoken out, confirming what many suspected all along. Her confession doesn't just reveal the truth about their private relationship. It exposes the side of Mike Rowe the cameras never caught. What she said left fans stunned, colleagues speechless, and even Mike himself emotional. Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear will forever change how you see one of America's most beloved TV hosts. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, because this story goes far deeper than anyone imagined. For years, Mike Rowe's charm, humor, and work ethic made him one of television's most relatable figures. Yet when it came to his private life, he built an invisible wall few could see through. Interviews, red carpets, and late-night appearances all ended the same way, with Mike gracefully dodging any question about romance. Fans grew convinced he'd chosen solitude over love, too busy crisscrossing America's back roads to settle down. But now, his longtime girlfriend has confirmed that wasn't the truth at all. The man who spent decades celebrating the everyday worker had someone quietly celebrating him behind the scenes. "He didn't hide me because he was ashamed," she explained. "He just wanted something of his own in a world where everything he did was public." Her voice trembled slightly when she said it, revealing the weight of years spent in silence. They first met long before Dirty Jobs turned Mike into a national icon. Back then, he was a Baltimore native with a captivating voice, hustling to make ends meet as a narrator and part-time host. "He wasn't rich or famous," she said with a nostalgic smile, "but he had that spark. You could tell he was destined for something bigger." Their connection wasn't instant fame or passion. It was built on humor, respect, and simplicity. Mike preferred small diners to fancy restaurants, quiet conversations to parties, and thoughtful gestures to grand displays. "He had this way of making you feel like the only person in the room," she recalled. "Even when he was dead tired, he'd listen like your words actually mattered." When Dirty Jobs exploded in popularity, everything changed. The grueling schedule, long travel days, and constant exposure strained their relationship. "He'd call from an oil rig or a sewage plant at 3 a.m. just to check in," she said. "Sometimes he'd fall asleep mid-sentence. But what kept them together wasn't passion, it was purpose. He believed in what he was doing," she added. "He saw dignity in the people the world ignored, and that passion was contagious." She watched from the sidelines as Mike transformed from a local host into a voice for blue-collar America. Yet fame, she says, never changed him. He's still the same man who fixes his own sink, laughs at his mistakes, and eats cold leftovers without complaint. Despite his growing recognition, Mike refused to exploit his relationship for publicity. He told me once, "If I open that door, they'll never let us close it again." That was enough for her. She accepted the quiet, the distance, and even the loneliness, understanding that what they had was something sacred in an industry built on exposure. And now, with her words confirming what fans had long suspected, that Mike Rowe wasn't a lifelong bachelor but a man devoted to one woman, the mystery is finally over. "He's always said some jobs are dirty," she laughed softly. "But protecting love in a world like his? That's the hardest job of all." For years, Mike Rowe's charm, humor, and work ethic made him one of television's most relatable figures. Yet when it came to his private life, he built an invisible wall few could see through. Interviews, red carpets, and late-night appearances all ended the same way, with Mike gracefully dodging any question about romance. Fans grew convinced he'd chosen solitude over love, too busy crisscrossing America's back roads to settle down. But now, his longtime girlfriend has confirmed that wasn't the truth at all. The man who spent decades celebrating the everyday worker had someone quietly celebrating him behind the scenes. "He didn't hide me because he was ashamed," she explained. "He just wanted something of his own in a world where everything he did was public." Her voice trembled slightly when she said it, revealing the weight of years spent in silence. They first met long before Dirty Jobs turned Mike into a national icon. Back then, he was a Baltimore native with a captivating voice, hustling to make ends meet as a narrator and part-time host. "He wasn't rich or famous," she said with a nostalgic smile, "but he had that spark. You could tell he was destined for something bigger." Their connection wasn't instant fame or passion. It was built on humor, respect, and simplicity. Mike preferred small diners to fancy restaurants, quiet conversations to parties, and thoughtful gestures to grand displays. "He had this way of making you feel like the only person in the room," she recalled. "Even when he was dead tired, he'd listen like your words actually mattered." When Dirty Jobs exploded in popularity, everything changed. The grueling schedule, long travel days, and constant exposure strained their relationship. He'd call from an oil rig or a sewage plant at 3 a.m. just to check in, she said. Sometimes he'd fall asleep mid-sentence. But what kept them together wasn't passion. It was purpose. He believed in what he was doing, she added. He saw dignity in the people the world ignored, and that passion was contagious. She watched from the sidelines as Mike transformed from a local host into a voice for blue-collar America. Yet fame, she says, never changed him. He's still the same man who fixes his own sink, laughs at his mistakes, and eats cold leftovers without complaint. Despite his growing recognition, Mike refused to exploit his relationship for publicity. He told me once, "If I open that door, they'll never let us close it again." That was enough for her. She accepted the quiet, the distance, and even the loneliness, understanding that what they had was something sacred in an industry built on exposure. And now, with her words confirming what fans had long suspected, that Mike Rowe wasn't a lifelong bachelor but a man devoted to one woman, the mystery is finally over. "He's always said some jobs are dirty," she laughed softly. "But protecting love in a world like his? That's the hardest job of all." When Dirty Jobs first premiered, Mike Rowe had no idea it would consume his life for the next decade. Every week brought a new challenge, working underground with miners, inside fish factories, or deep in the mud alongside sewer workers. Viewers loved the show's raw honesty, but few realized the toll it took on him personally. He was constantly traveling, his girlfriend admitted. Different states, different time zones. Sometimes I wouldn't see him for months. She said that despite the physical distance, their connection remained unshakable, because Mike made a point to call her every night, no matter how tired he was. He'd fall asleep mid-sentence sometimes, but he always called. That's just who he is. What kept their relationship strong wasn't glamour, it was loyalty. He'd always say, "If you can survive the dirt, you can survive anything." And I think he meant that in more ways than one. She revealed that even when the fame hit hard and people started recognizing him everywhere, he never acted differently. He never used the word fans, she explained. He always called them friends I haven't met yet. That humility is real. But while Mike was out there highlighting America's hardest workers, he was quietly battling exhaustion behind the scenes. He'd come home sore, bruised, sometimes sick, and I'd beg him to rest, she said. But Mike's not wired that way. He believes that if people are out there doing the real work, he doesn't have the right to complain. That relentless dedication became both his greatest strength and his biggest burden. She recalled one night when he came home after filming in a freezing factory, barely able to move. He sat on the couch, covered in grime, and said, "I don't know if I can keep doing this." But then he smiled and said, "But someone has to." That's Mike, always putting others first. She admitted that there were moments she wanted him to slow down, to think of himself for once, but he couldn't. He feels a responsibility to represent people who never get thanked for their work. He carries that weight with pride. Even though the distance was painful, she said she wouldn't change a thing. "I fell in love with his purpose as much as I fell in love with him," she confessed. "He's not perfect. He can be stubborn, distracted, and lost in thought. But when you see how much he cares about people, you realize he's exactly where he's meant to be." What most don't know is that during those long stretches apart, they wrote each other letters. Not texts, not emails, actual letters, she revealed. He said it made the connection feel real, like something worth keeping. Those letters, she says, are still tucked away in a box in her home. A quiet reminder that even when fame pulled him away, his heart never left. For Mike Rowe, hard work isn't just a job. It's a love language, and for her, loving him meant understanding that. As Mike Rowe's fame grew, so did the expectations placed on his shoulders. Networks wanted more shows, producers wanted more episodes, and fans wanted more access to his life. Yet behind the scenes, his girlfriend saw the cracks forming. He'd get home, collapse on the couch, and just stare at the ceiling, she said softly. He never complained, but I could tell he was running on fumes. For someone who spent years shining a light on others, Mike rarely took time for himself. He always felt guilty resting, she explained. He'd say, "There's a guy out there laying asphalt in 110-degree heat. I can't justify sleeping in." That's how deeply he respects hard work. But that same devotion often left him emotionally drained. He carried the weight of every story he filmed. The farmers struggling to survive, the miners risking their lives, the men and women who worked unseen and unappreciated. He'd wake up at night sometimes and just talk about them, she said. He remembered their names, their families, their struggles. He couldn't turn it off. His girlfriend revealed that at one point, their relationship nearly reached a breaking point. He was giving everything to the world and nothing to himself, she said. I told him, "You can't pour from an empty cup." But Mike struggled with the idea of slowing down. He saw his work as a calling, not a career. He'd tell me, "If I stop, people forget the message. They go back to ignoring the ones who keep this country running." That sense of duty, while noble, came at a price. He missed birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries. But what hurt her most was how much it hurt him. He'd send me pictures from hotel rooms or airport lounges, just saying, "Wish you were here." It broke my heart, because I knew he meant it. Still, she understood what drove him. He never wanted fame. He wanted connection, she said. He wanted people to look at a garbage collector or a farmer and say, "That's honorable." That kind of purpose doesn't fade easily. and she learned to love him through it. "You can't love Mike Rowe halfway," she laughed. "You either understand the mission or you don't." Over time, she became not just his partner, but his balance. The one person who reminded him that even heroes need rest. He'd come home covered in dirt and grease, and I'd tell him, "You don't have to prove anything today. You're home." That always made him smile. There were moments when Mike considered walking away from television altogether. He'd say, "Maybe I've done enough. Maybe it's time to disappear for a while." But then someone would send him a letter. A kid who wanted to be a welder, a father teaching his son about hard work. And that would pull him right back in. He couldn't turn his back on that. Through it all, she never stopped believing in him. "He's the kind of man who feels other people's pain more than his own," she said. "And that's beautiful. But it's also heavy." When asked what she thought people misunderstood most about him, her answer came without hesitation. "They think he's untouchable. They see confidence, humor, and charm. But behind that, he's incredibly human, gentle, self-doubting, and deeply loyal. That humanity," she says, "is what made her stay all these years." "He may not be home every night," she smiled, "but his heart always is." As the years rolled on, the world saw Mike Rowe as an unstoppable force, a man who made America laugh while reminding it to respect the workers who built it. But behind that fearless image was a man who constantly battled burnout, loneliness, and the pressure of being the voice for millions. His girlfriend revealed that the toughest part wasn't the distance, it was watching him carry burdens that weren't his to bear. He'd read messages from fans who said his show changed their lives, she said. He'd be grateful, but also heavy-hearted. He felt responsible for living up to that image every day. She described nights where he'd quietly sit on the porch, sipping coffee long after midnight, reflecting on the people he'd met, the welders, miners, and fishermen who reminded him what real work looked like. He never saw himself as famous, she said. He saw himself as lucky. Still, the isolation took its toll. There were moments when he'd come home, sit beside me, and just go silent. He didn't need to talk. He just needed peace. Mike wasn't someone who sought comfort through attention. He found it through stillness. His girlfriend understood that his silence was never distance. It was recovery. "He carries the noise of every job he's ever done," she said softly. "The noise of machines, laughter, exhaustion, and life. When he's home, he finally lets it go." Despite everything, she said, Mike always put her first in the quietest ways. He'd leave notes before leaving for a shoot. Just small things. "See you soon." Or, "Don't forget to smile today." Those gestures meant more than grand declarations ever could. What fans never saw, she revealed, was how fiercely protective he was of her privacy. "He told me once, 'I'm the one who signed up for this life, not you.' He meant it." For years, she remained anonymous, supporting him quietly, loving him without recognition. But now, after decades of silence, she's proud to finally say what many have long suspected. Mike Rowe isn't just the face of hard work. He's the embodiment of loyalty, gratitude, and love that endures when the cameras stop rolling. Mike Rowe's girlfriend's decision to finally speak wasn't made lightly. For nearly 2 decades, she had watched him live 2 lives, the man adored by millions on screen, and the quiet soul who came home craving nothing but peace. "Mike doesn't perform when the cameras are off," she said. "What you see on television, that humor, humility, and curiosity, that's him, completely." Yet, what surprised most people was the depth of self-doubt he carried. He never saw himself as a celebrity, she explained. He saw himself as a messenger. He often told her that fame made him uncomfortable because it distracted from the people whose stories truly mattered. He'd say, "I'm not the star, they are." That humility, while admirable, sometimes made life harder for him. He'd turn down lavish appearances and celebrity galas just to attend a friend's retirement party or volunteer at a local trade school. He'd rather shake hands with a welder than take a photo with an actor, she laughed. That grounded nature is what made her fall in love with him all over again each year. He doesn't chase attention. He earns respect, she said firmly. Still, being the partner of a man so admired came with its challenges. She described the strange feeling of walking through airports unnoticed while fans surrounded him, shouting his name. He'd always find me in the crowd and wink. It was his way of saying, "I'm still here with you." Through fame, distance, and relentless schedules, their bond only deepened because they never let fame rewrite who they were. "We built our world on honesty and laughter," she revealed. "He's the same man who helps old ladies carry groceries and thanks every waiter by name." Even now, as people continue to speculate about his private life, she insists the truth is simple. Mike Rowe's success never changed him. It only amplified who he already was. "He doesn't need a mansion or a spotlight to feel fulfilled," she said softly. "He needs good people, good stories, and a reason to wake up every morning." And now that she's finally spoken, fans have begun to understand that the secret behind Mike's enduring appeal isn't mystery, it's authenticity. He's the rare kind of man whose legacy isn't built on fame, but on the quiet, unshakable truth of who he really is. As Mike Rowe's career evolved, so did the way he viewed life, fame, and love. After years of constant travel, sleepless nights, and grueling shoots, he finally decided to slow down. Not because he was tired of working, but because he realized what truly mattered. He told me one day, "I think I've spent more time with strangers than with myself," his girlfriend revealed. That realization became a turning point. Mike began taking long breaks between projects, spending more time at home, and reconnecting with the quiet things that brought him peace: music, writing, and reflection. He'd sit on the porch with his guitar for hours, just strumming old country songs, she said. "That's when I saw the happiest version of him." Away from the cameras, Mike Rowe wasn't the confident host everyone knew. He was a thoughtful, observant man who valued solitude more than spotlight. He'd still get calls from producers asking him to return to TV full-time, but he'd always say, "Not yet. I'm where I need to be." His girlfriend says that's when their relationship entered its strongest phase. Without the constant chaos of filming, they rediscovered each other in the simple rhythms of normal life, cooking dinner together, going on drives, and laughing about how absurd fame could be. He'd joke that the only thing dirtier than a job is show business, she laughed. And he meant it. But underneath the humor, Mike carried gratitude for everything the show had brought him. "He doesn't regret a thing," she said. "He just finally learned to breathe." Fans who met him during this time often described him as calm, centered, and more grounded than ever before. "He's not chasing a legacy," she explained. "He's living one." When asked if he ever talks about marriage, she smiled knowingly. "Mike's never been the type to follow timelines. What we have is real, and that's enough for both of us." She believes that's the ultimate secret behind his enduring peace. Authentic love, built quietly, without validation, without headlines. "He's the man who could walk away from Hollywood tomorrow and be completely content," she said. "Because what fulfills him now isn't a camera, It's connection, purpose, and the life we've built together, away from the noise. Now, with his girlfriend's words finally out in the open, the mystery surrounding Mike Rowe has come full circle. The truth is simple yet powerful. He never needed fame to define him, and he never needed to prove himself to the world. What fans admired about Mike all these years wasn't just his humor or his fearlessness. It was his honesty. "He doesn't pretend to be anyone he's not," she said. "He's exactly the same man at home as he is on camera." Her confirmation silenced years of speculation and reminded everyone why Mike Rowe remains one of the most respected figures in television. He built a career on showing America that real heroes wear hard hats, not suits. And he built a life grounded in gratitude and love that never needed publicity to be real. "He's always said success means nothing if you lose your soul," she added quietly. And Mike never did. Today, at 59, he stands as proof that authenticity still matters, that love doesn't need to be flaunted, and that true character never fades. The revelation from his girlfriend didn't expose a scandal. It revealed the kind of story Hollywood rarely tells anymore. A man who stayed humble, faithful, and true to everything he believed in. And now that she's finally confirmed what fans suspected all along, one thing is certain: Mike Rowe's greatest work has never been on television. It's the life he's quietly built behind the scenes, with the woman who knew him long before the world did.